Okay, so right now what we're going to look at is long division. Now, we've done long division before with like numbers and stuff like that, but now this is what we're going to be doing it with. We're going to be doing it with things like polynomials, right? Some of y'all may know how to do this, I'm not too sure. But before, when we divided things out, what we had is we could literally just write this as a numerator over a denominator, right? Because dividing is the same thing as writing it like a fraction. Again, so in that case, you'd have it like x squared minus 6x plus 5 over x minus 1, right? But now with long division, we can actually simplify this a lot further down. Now you may see some stuff out of the side. I'm going to scroll over here for a second, and I'm going to show these 4 steps, okay? So it's like step 1, 2, 3, and 4. You guys are going to see how they come into play, but that's just divide, multiply, subtract, and carry down. So divide, multiply, subtract, and carry down. You'll see it in just a second. I just wanted to show you guys the steps, okay? So the way you have to write this out is, first of all, you take your numerator, right? And what you're going to be doing is draw that little divide by symbol, that huge divide by symbol, right? And you put your numerator on the inside and your denominator on the outside, okay? So the first step I always say is figure out what that first term inside the divide by sign, that huge divide by sign, if you divide this by that, what do you get? So x squared divided by x, what do you get? Well, that just leave you x right on the top. Okay. So that was, remember how over here, I'm going to scooch back just for a second. Remember how that was our first step, right? So we divided, right? We divided the x squared by x. You're looking at your first 2 terms there. So x squared divided by x, you get just x. Now what's the second step? Well, it says multiply. So now what you're going to do is multiply this x, by that entire thing. So x times x minus 1. So you're going to get x squared minus an x, right? So you're going to x squared minus x. Now the thing you want to do with this, though, you don't want to just bring everything down and add everything. What you need to do is change the signs. I used to write subtract everything, but I'm just going to change the sign. So that becomes a minus x squared and a plus x, right? If you want to write minus and in parentheses all this, it's the same thing. I just change the sign to everything because it's a bit easier that way. Okay, so now the next thing is I'm going to drop down that 5 whenever I simplify, right? So again, the x squared and the minus x squared just end up literally canceling out, right? And then you have negative 6x plus an x. It's going to be negative 5x, right? And then again, looking back at that little thing beside it there, that was subtraction, right? We basically just subtracted this from that. And then when we drop down that 5, that's our 4th step. So you guys can see kind of those little steps out to the side work with this kind of problem. So we got one term, all right, we're like halfway there. So now do the same thing again. What's this first term right here? Negative 5x divided by this first term here. Well, negative 5x divided by x just becomes what? Negative 5, right? So negative 5 up top. Okay, so that was, remember, going back to those steps I had over here. That was our step 1. Step 2 is multiply, so I need to go back, multiply this number by here. So negative 5 times x minus 1. So do that piece by piece, you should get negative 5x plus 5, right? Again, that changes the sign of that negative right there to a positive. And now what do? Remember, the next thing is we have to subtract everything. I'm just going to flip the sign so that negative becomes a positive, and that positive becomes a minus sign, negative, right? Well, actually, everything cancels out, right? Because negative 5x plus 5x just ends up being 0x, right? So that's done. And then positive 5 and a negative 5 just cancel out as well, leaving you just 0 as well. So your final, after you get all that stuff, you get 0, right? That 0 is your remainder. When you have a remainder of 0, you don't even have to write remainder of 0. You can just, your final answer would be up top. Your final answer is always going to be up top, okay? So that means x squared minus 6x plus 5, all that, divided by x minus 1 is equal to your answer up top. So it's equal to x minus 5. Okay? I was about to say any questions, but you can message me, right, if you have any questions. So again, remainder is 0, so you don't have to write anything out to that. I'll show you another one where you do have to write it like that. Let's change this one up a bit. Let's say instead of doing x squared minus 6x plus 5, let's change this up. And I'm going to do a fresh sheet right here, below here. I'm going to do something a bit different. Let's say x squared minus 6x plus 3. Let's do 3. Now this one we're going to get a remainder of something. I'll show you how to write that. So do the same steps as before. If you guys want to write the 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll write it right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You always divide first, multiply, subtract, and carry down. Those are your 4 steps you're going to be implementing throughout this entire thing. So you remember the first thing is take whatever you're dividing by and put it under here, or outside rather. So x minus 1. Now inside put all this junk up here, all the first bit. The first polynomial, right? Remember that's not a square root, right? That's just that's our like divide by symbol. Okay? So the first thing we need to do is, again, remember how I did up there? I took those 2 terms right there. X squared divided by x. Well, same old song and dance so far, right? Get an x up top, because x squared divided by x just becomes an x. Second step is multiply, so we need to multiply x times x minus 1. Okay, so it becomes x squared minus x. Third step is we subtract, or remember how I said we could just change the signs of everything, right? So that becomes a negative there, positive there. Now these 2 cancel out, so everything's looking kind of the same as we had before, because that's negative 6x plus x just give you negative 5x, right? Same thing we had up there. The only difference is when you drop down that c, remember that's that 3, is step 4, positive 3. Now here's where things are going to get kind of interesting. Do the same thing as before, right? We take that negative 5x, and we say, we're going back to, so we finished all 4 steps, right? Now we loop back to 1, so negative 5x divided by x, what do you get? We get negative 5, right? Multiply back, negative 5 times x minus 1, that's going to be negative 5x plus 5, again, same thing you got up here before I change the sign, right? So subtract it, change every sign. Now here's where you're going to get something different. You can see the negative 5x and the positive 5x are just going to do what? They're going to cancel out, right? But that positive 3 and negative 5, what are you going to get? You're going to get negative 2, right? Now before you had a remainder of 0, so you didn't have to write anything additional. Now you actually do have a remainder of 2. Now there's 2 ways to write this. I don't like writing just, remember how I said the top up here's your answer? I don't like writing x minus 5 with a remainder of 2. This is remainder right there, by the way. I don't like writing it like that. I like writing it like this. So when you have a remainder of something, right, you remember what our answer was. It's whatever's up top. So x minus 5. Now, what you also have to do is, whatever this term is, right, whatever this number is, you're going to get a number out back when you're done. So always put, now this case is going to be a minus sign, right, because there's a negative out front. So minus 2. And then all you do is put it over whatever you're dividing by. So in this case, we're dividing by x minus 1. So all you're going to do is divide it by 2 over x minus 1. Okay? So again, all I did there was, remember, this is our final answer. Before we had a remainder of 0, right, we didn't have to do anything else to that. We were done. But since this does have a remainder of that negative 2 right there, all we do is do negative 2 over this part, over whatever we divided by. And you can check this, right? This is your final answer, by the way. That's it. You can check this, though, is if we go back and we multiply this term, this giant term, right, by this, we should get this out, okay? Let me say that again. If we multiply this answer we get by x minus 1, we're going to get that x squared minus 6x plus 3. It's going to work, okay? So this is your final answer for this one. This is long division. Again, I went through 2 examples. You're actually going to only have the first type of one to do. I think that's the problem that I gave you. So yeah, anyway, thank you for watching the long division thing. I'll catch you guys in class. Okay, so we previously did long division in class. Now we're going to be doing synthetic division. Now this one's a bit different. I kind of like it a little bit better because it seems a bit quicker. You don't have a lot of algebra kind of stuff to do. But hey, it's tit for tat, right? So let's say we have this one right here. This should be the problem I gave you. And let's divide these two, okay? And we're going to use synthetic division. So the only difference between this and the other way is instead of actually putting the entire term out here, like the entire whatever we're dividing by and stuff like that into that little divide by symbol, this case what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a little shortcut. So the first thing I usually say is, if you have x minus 1 and you need it in this form, right? You need it as some 1x squared. Remember, there's like imaginary 1 out there and a 1x minus 1. You need it in this form, okay? So the way I like to look at it is, whatever that number is right there, if it's a minus 1, right? So x minus 1, change that minus 1 to a plus 1 and put it in this little box out here by itself, okay? It's just a 1 out here. Now this over here, what you're going to put on the inside, right, your quote-unquote inside, is going to be the coefficients of each of those terms. So you have a 1, right, because there's a little imaginary 1 out there, a positive 6, and a negative 5, okay? Okay. We'll write this little line beneath it. So again, all I did was I switched the sign right here and put it right there. Again, this is just kind of like a little trick that they come up with. So I just changed the sign of that minus 1 to a positive 1. I just put the coefficients of this first bit right there up top. Now the first step you're going to always do, it's never going to change, is you're always going to drop that 1 down. You're always going to drop that 1 down. And then after that, what you do is you have to multiply these two together, okay? So multiply those two together, what are you going to get? You're going to get 1, right? 1 times 1 is just 1. You put the answer right beside of it, okay? Now, you can write a plus sign if you want to. I'm not going to because I usually don't. What you do is you add down. So 6 plus 1 is what? 7. And now we do the same thing before. Remember how we added 1 here, we multiplied it, and we put the answer here? So same thing happens for this one. We take the 7, multiply it by 1, and put it here. So 7 times 1 is just 7. And then add down 7, negative 5 plus 7 is just a positive 2, right? So now the trick with this is, remember how we had x squared plus 6x minus 5? What's the degree of that one? The degree of that's 2, right? When we're dividing this, the degree ends up going 1 down. So in this case, our final answer, remember you're just looking at the coefficients, right? You can't just put 1, 7, 2 as your answer. Your final answer is going to be, these are just the coefficients. So what you're going to write is x, so you think of a 1x, right? Plus 7, plus, now that's a remainder. This last bit is always going to be your remainder. I'll put r beside of it. That last bit is going to always be your remainder. So we have 1x plus 7, and the reason why I got that again is because I just went 1 down on those powers. So I have instead of doing x squared, right, I go 1 down on the degrees, because the degree of this is 2. Right, I'll even write that up here. The degree of this is 2. And our final answer is going to be 1 degree down, so it'll be a degree 1. So you have 1x plus 7 plus, now on this side, remember when we did long division, all we did was put 2, we put whatever our number was divided by what we were dividing. So that same thing happens this time around. We put 2 over x minus 1. You don't have to put the 1x there. I'm just doing it like that. That way you can see that's the coefficient, right? So that's our final answer for this one. I'm going to do one where we don't have a remainder, because honestly, that's kind of a bit of a tougher one to do, because it does have a remainder. I'm going to do one that doesn't. So let's say we do the same one we did last time. Let's do x squared. In this case, let's do, I believe it was minus 6x plus 5 divided by x minus 1. Again, all I did was switch the signs right here, but in this case, we're going to get no remainder outside of it, right? So now I do the same thing as before. I switch whatever this is, so that's going to be, that negative 1 is going to become a positive 1, right? Put that positive 1 here, and then we do the same thing as before. Remember we have a little 1 out front, so we have a 1, a 6, and a 5. Excuse me, a 1, a negative 6, and a 5. Be careful about that. Okay. Do the same steps as before, right? We carry the 1 down and do the same multiplication step. So 1 times 1 is 1. Put the answer here. That's 1. And we get negative 5 here. And remember, your final answer is going to be something like x minus something or x plus something. And we do negative 5 times a positive 1. We get negative 5. And boom, we get a 0 right there for your remainder. So remember before how I said, when we get a 0 for a remainder, we don't have to write anything at all. We just can leave it as is. So these tell you your coefficients, right? So I'm going to carry down. So it becomes 1x. I'm just going to write x, right? Minus 5. There's nothing else you have to write because, again, 0 is your remainder. There's no remainder at all. So your final answer is just going to be x minus 5. And again, let me go back to the top for a second. You can always check these. You can always, again, multiply these two together, right? And you should get that. So x minus 5 times x minus 1 will get you this. And there's all this junk times x minus 1. is going to give you this. You can double check that, and it's going to work all the time with synthetic and long division. The only thing is that synthetic division, you have to make sure you have it like this. It has to be a 1 out front of the x, out front of the x squared, and a 1 out front of the x right here. You always have to have it in that form, or else it's not going to work. That's why we showed you long division, is because long division always works. Synthetic division is kind of special with this kind of stuff. So that's it for synthetic division. The first one I gave you was your example. Then the second one was just one that way you could see how it works with the outer remainder. We're going to go over that in class though. So thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.